Good morning. I'm Dr. Bill Thomas, and what an extraordinary privilege to be in your company, to be with you, to be with some of the finest, kindest, and most loving people in the world. That's not something we get every day. To be together with this group in this place. So I have three tiny suggestions before we start the program this morning. Three things to remember, and you can take these home with you. Number one, wake up. Number two, and we can try this together, breathe deep. Number three, live dangerously. So, danger. I'm going to introduce a person whose middle name is Danger. It's Carol Danger Shockley. She's a hero of mine. She's lived dangerously as long as I've known her, and she has done more to change more lives than almost anyone I know. I'm so proud to be a friend and ally. Carol, welcome. I should have said Carol Danger Shockley, welcome.
Talk about an exaggeration. That's an exaggeration. I think the only message that I want to give today is to open up. Not just to share your experiences, but to be willing to listen to those that are sharing, because you're in a comfortable environment. You're in an environment, as Bill says, of love. Not just your type of love that you experience with one person, but a comfort, a place that you can be yourself, and that you can share and you can learn. I thank you so much for coming to Arkansas. For those of you that are visiting, we think we have a gorgeous state. I would only wish for you had a few days to roam around to the Fayetteville area and Hot Springs and see our beautiful forest, because nature is what I love. That's what I wish for all of the homes, that they have something green in their lives and something that they can love and something that they can appreciate and enjoy. In Arkansas, we've had an amazing turnaround in some facilities. I wish it for all facilities. Thank you for coming. That's all I have to say. Have a great time.
Thank you for welcoming us, and I feel welcomed. The Eden Alternative believes strongly that the voices of elders, are important to us. She takes care of me. I want you to know that. Thanks for taking care of me, Jude. The voices of elders really matter. And they matter here, and they matter where we work, and they matter in our homes, and they matter in our communities, they matter in our schools. That the voices of elders across the centuries, across the millennia, have been one of the most important elements shaping our humanity. And I know that there are many people in this audience who've attended many professional conferences that were exclusively about older people. Well, the Eden Alternative has been blessed now for 16, 17 years, been blessed with a voice, blessed with a presence, blessed by an elder who has inspired us and influenced us, has corrected us and shown us new and better ways of thinking and feeling. And her name is Sarah Rowan. And this would not be an Eden Alternative gathering if Sarah did not have an opportunity to come before us as an elder and to bring us to the right place, the place we need to be to enjoy and learn as much as possible from these next days. Sarah?
A bell is no bell till you ring it. A song is no song till you sing it. And love in your heart isn't put there to stay. Love isn't love till you give it away. 16 years ago, I was looking for that type of love. My husband was walking with forgetfulness. Would you believe this kind man, a professor of many years, this learned man who had walked with forgetfulness, had ended up in a home? My daily prayer was, Sarah, when your Joseph needs a home that's better than the home you can provide for him, ask for it to just appear. But actually, he had to go to 2 homes before he found home. And the first 2 homes expelled him. I mean, physically expelled him. I thought, I don't want to write a book about the professor who was expelled from school and home. And my children lived in a place called Aiken, South Carolina. And they said, Mom, you should bring our dad, to Aiken, South Carolina. And I went there with a list. And on that list were names of homes. And I knocked on the door and I said, my husband walks with forgetfulness. And I'm looking for a home that will love him and care for him and treat him the way he needs to be treated, with respect and dignity, so he can learn from you and he can teach you so many things. And I looked and I told that story. And many homes said, oh, yes, Mrs. Rowan, you've come to the right home. But then I looked around and I saw other people that had unmet needs. And I said, I don't want my husband to have a single unmet need. So I began to think, I won't involve my own personal family with this. They're young. They have their own family. This is something that's my joy, to find the right place for my husband. I went to lunch by myself, eating in this wonderful restaurant, when a woman came up to me and she said, by the way, I haven't seen you here before. Are you planning to move to our beautiful little community? And I said, perhaps. My husband walks with forgetfulness. Another name is Alzheimer's, but I don't really like that name. She said, what are you looking for? I said, I'm looking for a home that will care for him and respect him the way he needs to be respected and cared for. And she stopped at my table and she said, have you looked at, and she gave me the name of a home that wasn't on my list. I got my pencil and I said, excuse me, would you tell me again the name of that place? And I wrote it down. And it was like a woman's name. It was a place called Mattie C. Hall. And I said, I don't have that on my list. She said, well, the reason I tell you that is because they have a special philosophy of care. They eliminate loneliness, helplessness, and boredom. And the place is called a human habitat. Oh, I was just levitating off of my chair by this, you know. And then she said, by the way, I said, oh, by the way, my name is Sarah. She said, I'm the state respite care Alzheimer's director. And I think you would find this place to meet your needs. Oh, I hugged her, but she didn't even tell me her name, and I didn't even get it, but I got out my phone and I said, children, guess what? I found a place for Dad. Here it is, here's the name. They said, Mom, that might not be the prettiest place. It's not the newest. It's sort of in a remote location. I said, oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter about that. I found the place. They said, well, who told you about it? I didn't even know the woman's name. So I said, Miss Angel. No, her name was Miss Angel. And they began to question their mom. They said, Mom, we can continue looking. I said, oh, no, I'm going tonight. And I went at night, and I knocked on the wrong door. But there was a face on the other side of the door that said, can I help you? Come around, they said, and I did. And I said, I'm coming tomorrow for an interview. But I just want to see at night what it's like in your home. And this kind face said, oh, please come. I have a few of our friends here, our family, that are ready for bed. Some aren't, but some are. And those that are, you can help me as we get them ready for their night's sleep. So I walked the path. And as we got the third person to bed, I looked up at that care partner and I said, excuse me, I don't even have to have a bed here. I can just sleep on the floor. It's the perfect place. It was an Eden home. You know, I couldn't believe that God was so good. Now, my husband stayed there for a while. And he loved it so much. But to get him there was a different thing because we lived in Ohio. So I got him in my car, and we drove 725 miles nonstop. We sang every song known to man 10 times. Doesn't matter if you repeat them, you know. And when we got there at 11 o'clock at night, the 3 caregivers that were to be his were waiting for him. And there was a little dog outside the door. Not by divine providence. The little dog was the exact type of dog that we had left in Ohio. But our dog was named Mac. And this dog's name was Miss Stella. But Miss Stella had her name changed as soon as my husband saw her. He said, Mac, what are you doing out here at night by yourself? He picked up Miss Stella and Mac and put him in his arms, and he said to his 3 caregivers, could you show me where my bed is? Mac and I are ready to go to sleep. He did not even realize that he had changed homes in a day because it was like home. But I didn't know anything about the founders of this thing called Eden. And I was just thinking it was a spiritual place like the Garden of Eden was designed to be. And then I heard there was a man named Bill Thomas. And he had a wife named Jude. And that very same year that my husband found Eden, the first international conference, which was 16 or 17 years ago, this time of year. And I was so grateful. I mean, I was telling the world about this place called Eden. And then they said the founders are going to come. And I was hoping I could go, but I thought you had to be somebody special to get there. But you know what Eden Home did? They said, Sarah, if you like Eden the way you talk about it, would you like to go to the conference and say thank you? Oh my gosh. I was so excited about going to this first international conference. I didn't know what it would be. I didn't know whether there'd be 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 100. I didn't know too much about it. I was just too enthralled to think that this had appeared in my life, as undeserving as it might be. It was grace. So I went to the conference. Jude was there. She looks exactly now like she did then. That spiritual face that you know. I mean, and then Bill came. And I thought, oh my gosh. And you know what? They escorted them in with bagpipes. I'll never forget it. And then they said, Sarah, would you say a few words? Oh my gosh. I said, tell me when to stop. Whoever tells you when to stop. Because I just can't stop talking about this thing called Eden. So I started. And prior to that, my husband loved to paint. And when he was a healthy man, he painted beautifully. And when he began to walk with forgetfulness, he still loved to paint. And my job, when he was painting, was to remove the paints when I saw he had had enough. Because if not, he'd paint his hair, he'd paint inside his ear, he'd paint his face. And so on this particular day, he had finished this painting. And it was so beautiful, and it was a sort of rather a large painting. And we were sitting at our kitchen table, and I was getting the brushes and taking them over to the sink so he wouldn't start painting everything, the table, me, everything, which would have been fun. Why did I stop that? Well, anyway, I did. And as I was washing the brushes, he got those little pieces of paper that he had made these beautiful, and he began to tear them apart like this, and he'd say, here, my sweetheart, here's a piece of our lives. Here's another one. Here's another piece of our life. And as I looked around and he was tearing up his beautiful paintings, I thought, oh. But he was saying, here, my sweetheart, here's a piece of our lives. So I said, oh, my Joseph, I did not realize we had so many beautiful pieces of our life. Let's pick them all up and put them together and name it the pieces of our lives. Now, this is not the original, but that's how the pieces of your life can look when you put them back together. They're mountain peaks. They're Arkansas rivers. They're stones that dash you when you think you have smooth sailing. That's like the pieces of our lives. I love what he did. Here, my sweetheart, Here's a piece of our life. You wonderful, caring people are honoring the pieces of the lives that you know. Strangers they once were, like my Joseph. I didn't even realize many of the strangers that were caring for him so deeply. And it was actually later, after my husband had died, that I met a man in the most unusual way. He had needed help, and the miracle was that I just happened to be there on that moment of the miracle needed. He needed his light bill paid because his lights had been cut off. And I happened to be where that place was. And I heard him say, but I don't know why they've been cut off. I pay my bill. And I saw my Joseph. I said, excuse me, may I have the privilege of just paying that bill? And I walked over to the desk and I said, I heard the conversation. Could I have the honor of paying this bill today? And the lady said, well, I've got to ask the supervisor. And the supervisor said yes. And it was a miracle that I just even had the money to pay his bill and my bill. And as I did that, I walked out. And he said, lady, that's never happened before. Do you have a name? I said, oh, yes, my name is Sarah. He said, do you have a number? I said, oh, yes, I have a number. And I wrote it down on his bill. That night, when I went to my home, the answering machine said, my name is Mr. Willie. Thank you for paying my bill. I know she's on there someplace, it's her name, but then she hangs up. Then there was a second voice message that said, I'm going to be passed. Thank you for paying that bill. If I can do anything for you, I will. If it don't suit you, I'll work till it do. The third voice said, you helped my father today. Could we have lunch together? I called her back. I said, oh, yes, I met your father. He was a holy man. I'll have lunch with you. Where shall we meet? She said, tomorrow at Walmart. I said, I'll be there. I went to see Miss Celestial, who was this man's daughter. And she said, he would like to see you today at his home. And I went there. And I said, oh, Mr. Willie, tell me about your life. What did you do? And he said, well, it was a great honor what I did. He said, I worked in a place that took care of older people. They call them elders. And in that place, they had a philosophy of care that would eliminate hopelessness, helplessness, and boredom. I said, Mr. Willie, did you know a man named Dr. Joseph Rowan? He said, oh, yes, ma'am, everybody knew him. He said he was a professor and said he'd start the day with knocking on the table and getting the class together. And he said the favorite lecture that all the students loved was his lecture about the Titanic. But see, he talked about a lot of other things. And he said, but my job to take care of Dr. Rowan was after the lecture was over, he'd get his little harmonica and he'd play that harmonica and then he'd say, class dismissed. And then he would go over to the fish tank and dropped the harmonica in the fish tank. And he said, my specific job was to go over to the fish tank, take out the harmonica, get it all ready for tomorrow's lecture. If I could do for you what you have done for me, I would throw rose petals in your path so that you could just feel the fragrance and the love that comes from serving others. I honor the place in you where lies your spirit, your joy, your wisdom, and your sorrow. And if you are in that place in you, and I am in that place in me, we are one. I am in you, and all of you are in me. Namaste.